Nelson Jones was a feisty, fearless 11-year-old growing up with two younger sisters in a small town in Dickinson County. No one could have imagined how their carefree childhood would be shattered. His sister shared very vivid, very difficult memories. Growing up in the small town of Hope, Kansas, Nelson Jones was every bit the typical boy.
He liked the outdoors. He loved to fish, baseball.
Melissa Bowl was the middle child. She recalls a big brother who was competitive.
See who could go the lowest, who could jump the farthest, who could run the fastest.
And fearless.
We would climb on top of the watershed, and he had tied a water hose to a tree, and we would climb on top of the shed and swing down from there like Tarzan. I mean, he always had crazy, wild ideas.
He was brave.
He was.
Brave enough that on October 27, 1990, Nelson insisted he could stay home alone while the rest of the family took a day trip to Wichita.
He had begged my mom to stay home. So he was 11, and he'd never stayed home by himself before, and he was supposed to hang out with somebody around the neighborhood, I think.
I think they got home around 6 p.m. Saturday evening. Nelson wasn't at home. There was a school carnival just a few blocks away at the school, so the family assumed that he had left and gone to the carnival.
We went up there and could not find him. Nobody had seen him, so we went back home.
While Melissa's mom got on the phone to call neighbors, her younger sister went into Nelson's room.
And she came out and she said, "Mom, I found Nelson and he looks all beat up." So we all went into the bedroom, and he was kneeling like you would to pray on the bed, and his upper half was laying on the bed. And I just remember he looked very pale and blue. Mom walked around the side and she grabbed his arm and to feel for a pulse, and I just remember her saying, "Oh God, Dennis, he's dead." And my stepdad ran up barefoot to get the police officers.
Nelson had been strangled. Current Dickinson County Sheriff Jerry Davis was a year into his job as a road patrol deputy and assigned to guard the scene. Years later, he'd look further into the case as a criminal investigator.
There were several witnesses that saw him playing with people and biking around town. They were all interviewed. It was kind of a community where everybody got along, everybody knew each other, and everybody trusted each other. So this was very shocking for the community at that time.
Shocking and devastating for a little girl.
And I was terrified. I was scared of the dark. I was scared to turn 11. I was afraid I would get killed too. To be in your own home and not feel safe in your own home was pretty traumatizing.
How hard is it to not know who did it?
I go in waves. Sometimes I'm really angry because I think about how it changed our family and the dynamics and all the pain that it brought.
The house is gone now. Melissa's mom passed away, but among the photos and a poem her mom wrote about a child at Heaven's Gate with big blue eyes, Melissa still finds hope. Nelson was chosen as the 3 of Hearts in the Kansas Cold Case deck. It's a new effort to get tips in unsolved cases by featuring them on playing cards. Melissa says she's grateful Nelson is not forgotten.
I often wonder what life would have been like with him here. What kind of brother would he be? What kind of uncle would he be to my children, you know?
Nelson was an innocent victim, and he deserves to have his story told. His family deserves to know what happened. Right now, Nelson would know what happened, and the person who killed Nelson would know what happened. And right now, those are the only 2 leads we may have. And Nelson's gone. He can't speak for himself, so hopefully the evidence will speak for him.
I think I'd want to know why. Why did they do that? And maybe tell them what it did to our family, like the consequences of those actions, that choice that that person made. I'd like to know that they have a conscience, and I hope someday that they'll confess and seek forgiveness.
If you know anything about who killed Nelson or any unsolved case, call the Kansas Bureau of Investigation at 1-800-KS-CRIME. Melissa Bruner, 13 News.
13 News, Kansas News Leader.
Imagine waking up one morning and you can no longer move and barely breathe. It happened to Daniel Lastly. The talented Topeka performer returns to the stage after a 4-year absence in The Story of My Life at Helen Hocker Theater. Today, he shares the story of his life and the long journey back.
We are gathered to honor the life of
Danny Lastly found a home on stage.
It was just one of the things that I was good at.
It's also where he's finding his next act.
Let me tell you a story about Al.
It was a pretty normal day.
March 2018, Danny got home from work and he and his wife Jo headed out for a walk with their dog.
About 2/3 of the way through, I had a sharp pain radiating from my neck down the top of my right shoulder. And I knew it wasn't a normal kind of pain.
They went to the ER. Through hours of tests, a CT, MRI, the pain kept getting worse.
When I think it couldn't possibly get more intense, it's getting more intense.
Finally, he fell asleep.
And when I woke up, I couldn't move anything below my shoulders, and I could barely breathe, and it was terrifying.
Danny was transferred to University of Kansas Hospital in Kansas City. At first, doctors thought he had a condition causing inflammation in his spinal cord. They'd later determine he most likely suffered a stroke of his cervical spinal column. Regardless the cause, Danny, who was on stage for opening night of Mamma Mia at Topeka Civic Theater days earlier, thought he'd lost the spotlight forever.
I was very depressed and just scared. And while I was at KU Med was the first time I was able to twitch just one finger, my index finger. And when that happened, it changed everything. I had hope.
He spent 2 weeks at KU,
Come on, push.
then transferred for what turned into a 3-month inpatient stay at Kansas Rehabilitation Hospital.
Just learning how to tolerate sitting up, gaining some strength in my neck to hold my head upright, and then learning how to grip something. And slowly more things started coming back. I could twitch my toes, I could then move my feet.
This has got to count as a functional improvement.
That became my performing venue because I love applause. And my therapists were, and all the staff there were applauding for me every day. Just doing the simplest thing that I couldn't do the day before was, a big deal.
Hey, you do your thing.
After about a year of physical therapy, he realized some things would never fully return.
I have great skills with my hands, and I'm very grateful for that, but I can't reach, I can't lift, I can't carry.
And walking is limited. Danny says it sent him into another depression until he learned about a vocational rehabilitation program. He enrolled online to study for a master's degree in mental health counseling.
That helped so much, just having a focus, having a goal, and being able to pursue something that would be very meaningful.
Danny gets his degree this month, but he'll miss the graduation ceremony because of another major milestone.
In 1876, cars were not invented.
He's returned to the stage, starring in The Story of My Life at Topeka's Helen Hocker Theater.
It's incredible. There's just no better feeling. It felt very familiar to me, and in some ways it feels like it's only been, maybe a few weeks since my last show. But in other ways, because of how I navigate now, how I move, it's a new adventure.
Danny is realistic.
I'm very aware of my limitations and the obstacles.
And as he navigates his new normal on stage and in his new career, he's grateful for the encore he's been given.
The Adventures of Tom Sawyer.
It's all about resilience and coping and building the skills to manage whatever life throws at you.
So I flap my wings to stretch myself and just enjoy the view.
Frustration is probably a thing I live with every day. And being able to manage my frustration and still achieve something or ask for help. In reality, we depend on each other all the time, and it is no weakness to ask for help.
This was so much better than.
Stay close to your friends, manage your fear, Stay focused on what's important to you and remain hopeful.
Thank you.
Good to see her home. Thanks, Isaac. February is Heart Month, and tonight we share a story very close to our hearts here at WIBW. Last August, our friend and colleague Maggie Mahood suffered a massive heart attack. Her heart stopped. What happened next and what she's learned since are lessons we should all take to heart to perhaps one day save someone we love.
I'm very, very blessed, very fortunate.
Maggie Mahood says life had slowed for her the past several years, and she didn't even realize it.
When I was coaching or when I was in the car business, I would probably log in the 5 to 7 mile a day category. And I just became much more sedentary. I didn't exercise.
Should I call?
Maggie, an account executive for WIBW TV, still worked in the yard and kept busy with friends, but one day changed everything.
The day was August 20th of 2021, and I don't remember in any of it.
What is the last thing you remember about that day?
Picking up the newspaper on the driveway. And I brought the newspaper in to the house from the garage, turned around and collapsed. I remember being in the hospital room and my mom was there.
It was 7 days later.
It was obvious that we had a medical emergency.
Maggie's neighbors, Jane and Russ Green, can fill in the gap.
And Jane and I quickly went over to the house and saw Maggie on the floor.
A knock on the door from Maggie's friend alerted them something was wrong. Jane called 911.
She had stopped breathing. I checked her pulse. She had no pulse. At that time, because she had no pulse, we started CPR on her. And I did chest compressions and Jane did respirations.
Paramedics from Mission Township Fire Department arrived within minutes.
And she was shocked twice.
What was it like to see a friend in such distress and be able to put that aside?
I mean, I still see Maggie on that floor, and seeing Maggie get put into that ambulance and the EMTs driving away doing CPR on her, I just fell apart, and I think neither Russ nor I thought she was going to survive.
They'd later learn Maggie had suffered a heart attack due to 100% blockage in her left anterior descending artery, the major blood supply to the heart.
The highest chance of survival was 4 in 100, according to, it was generally between 1 and 4 in 100.
Were you dead?
Yeah.
Several of Maggie's doctors said to us that she would not have had the outcome that she had CPR not been started immediately.
Russ is a radiation oncologist who's certified in advanced cardiovascular life support. Jane, a pediatric nurse practitioner with basic life support training. But both stress it's training available to anyone and that everyone should have.
And oftentimes you take these courses thinking that you'll never end up using them.
Yeah, I think I took my first CPR course in my early 20s. You don't have to be a health professional to take a CPR class.
Once you know CPR for a friend, for yourself, know the signs. Maggie says she's learned, particularly for women, it's not the traditional chest pressure or radiating pain you might think. She had neither.
Friends told me I was tired. I had a great story about one of my friends gave me a mint because I was complaining of having what I thought was acid reflux. I thought I was tired and cranky.
In retrospect, knowing what you know now, were those some signs?
Probably, yes.
With 4 stents and rehab work, Maggie feels almost good as new. She's grateful for every day and every person who's made it possible.
It is very humbling. I had what I thought was a cabinet, a list of people that I thought would come if something happened, and they all came.
Well, Maggie's very easy to love. Both the Red Cross and American Heart Association offer that CPR training, and I have a link to information and their online videos demonstrating hands-only CPR on the health page of WIBW.com. Surviving her heart attack is only part of Maggie's story. You'll see how cardiac rehab is playing a vital role in her recovery and patients like her tomorrow on 13 News at 10.
Maggie certainly keeps us all on our toes here at 13 News.